I am vetoing this resolution. I have the duty to veto it, and I'm very proud to veto it. Congress's vote to deny the crisis on the southern border is a vote against reality.
Your declaration of an emergency on the southern border was clearly authorized under the law.
He vetoed a bill and did that on national TV to prove to the American people that he is serious about securing our border.
The main terror suspect in New Zealand's deadliest attack appears in court. The gunman murders 49 people.
Security from the police will continue at mosques.
I think it's a small group of people that have very, very serious problems.
The media going wild for Beto for president in 2020.
I have enjoyed white privilege. Absolutely. Undeniable.
Former presidential candidate Jeb Bush calls for a Republican to challenge President Trump.
Republicans ought to be given a choice.
The Democrats made a terrible decision when they announced that they had turned down Fox News' offer to host. You want to be in the big leagues, but you refuse to ever play an away game?
It is officially March Madness.
Steal by Williamson.
Good times because we're on the eve of St. Patrick's Day and there's a parade.
Absolutely. Who do you got
and lots
in
of
your Final
partying
Four?
and drinking going on.
Who do you got in your Final Four?
Don't do that,
He's
Jeff.
so mean.
What?
He's
That's
so
not mean. That's everyone's talking
Just
about.
name 4 colleges and you're good. You're good.
ASU,
That's one.
Wisconsin, my other alma mater, University of California, San Diego.
Throw Duke in there and you're good.
Duke.
There you go. Boom. That's her bracket.
That wasn't a trick question.
You also saw that Jeb Bush, if he needs a new campaign slogan, just do 2 exclamation points this time. Jeb double exclamation point.
So let's try to get reaction to that.
This from Jeb's new campaign manager, who's really encouraging Jeb to run and primary the president.
Well, let's go down to Florida and see what Dan Bongino might think about this. Fox News contributor, of course, former NYPD officer, Secret Service agent, and author of Spygate. Dan? Jeb Bush might jump in.
Good idea?
One, there's absolutely zero chance low energy Jeb is going to jump in the race. But Larry Hogan from Maryland might. And guys, and Rachel, this is an absolutely awful, terrible idea. I mean, you may have some personal beefs with Trump's Twitter behavior. I don't, but you may. But what are you going to run on? I mean, are you going to run against his tax cuts, his Supreme Court picks, his circuit court picks, his district court picks, his regulatory push to get rid of red tape? I mean, his push against Planned Parenthood funding recently? What exactly are you going to run on?
Maybe they don't like low unemployment.
Yeah, maybe. That's a great point, Ed. Like, listen, this low unemployment thing is awful. We really need to get rid of this and up that unemployment rate. I would, if Larry Hogan jumps in, and listen, I ran in Maryland, I lost, Larry Hogan won, congratulations, he was a nice guy when I was there, but he's the governor of Maryland. If he runs, I'll make you a bet on the air that if he runs, he loses the Maryland primary, the Maryland primary to Trump, and loses it handily.
You're probably right.
I'll bet you that.
We had a little bit of fun with that, but there was a serious tragedy in New Zealand, and you would think this would be a chance to come together, this would be a chance to blame the shooter. But predictably, a lot of people in the media blaming the president. Watch this.
All about invaders, which is similar language to the killer at the synagogue in Pittsburgh. It's also language that President Trump used in a campaign ad before the midterm election.
We know that lots of far-right attackers have claimed to be Trump supporters in recent months.
So this is a president who has given plenty of rhetorical ammunition, I think, to terrorists like this.
The president, as you mentioned, is facing other tough questions, specifically whether the president is emboldening right-wing extremism with his immigration rhetoric.
Why are all these groups, Brooke, and also the shooter, according to his manifesto, seeing Donald Trump as a blunt instrument, as an enabler, and as an ally for their poison ideology?
Once again, Dan, it's Trump's fault.
You know, Pete, of all the awfuls in politics, and you and I both know there's some really awful things out there, I rank this number one, the most disgusting thing you can do. I mean, this is an unspeakable human tragedy. I can't watch the video. I can't. The video, of course, of this savage who decided to GoPro his horrors for the world to see. I can't watch that. Even being a former agent and a cop, I've seen a lot. I can't. Maybe I should, and I'd understand just how much of a savage this maniac was. But to go out, your first instinct after something like this is, gee, how do I score some political points against my opponents? I'm sorry, but you're a deeply troubled person. And Pete, listen, not that my bona fides or credibility matters on this. It doesn't. This is a tragedy, and we should always focus on that. but me and just about everyone else in this network that I work with, when that thing happened at the baseball field, that other tragedy, and that Bernie Sanders supporter shot up the baseball field and nearly killed Steve Scalise, everybody was unanimous in the focus should be on the person who did this, the maniac. This is not Bernie Sanders' fault or anyone else. This is a very, very dangerous kind of politics, and I'm being deadly serious here. This is a very dangerous kind of politics to practice, and nobody should engage in this. It's abhorrent.
It's such a great point. You're absolutely right. Bernie Sanders was not implicated in it by any Republican, despite them almost being executed. But listen, Donald Trump was not, or President Trump was not the only one being accused of being implicated or somehow responsible for this murder. So was Chelsea Clinton. I want you to take a look at this clip and then tell me on the other side what you think.
After all that you have done and all this homophobia that you have sowed. I'm so sorry that you feel that way. Well, certainly it was never my intention. I do believe words matter. I believe we have to show they do matter. And this right here is the result of a massacre stoked by people like you and the words that you put out into the world. And I want you to know that, and I want you to feel that deep inside. 49 people died because of the rhetoric that you put out there.
What does "I'm sorry you feel that way" mean? What does that mean?
Dan, I don't know what's more infuriating, what the social justice warrior told Chelsea Clinton or the fact that Chelsea actually apologized.
I don't get it. Well, actually, I don't get why she apologized. I do get what's going on, however. I have warned about this a couple times on this network. The danger of these state power, far left, ideological, radical revolutions that we're going through now with the Democrat Party is nobody is ever pure enough. Like nobody is ever a bigger supporter of government power. They leapfrog each other and they attack each other and they inherently implode. I mean, Chelsea Clinton, are you serious? She's the problem? Guys, ladies, come on. This is outrageous. I mean, Chelsea Clinton is a check-the-box liberal in every single way. She's the problem. This is outrageous. Bad enough to blame Trump, but blaming Chelsea Clinton is just, it's insane.
It's because she tweeted that against the anti-Semitic remarks that Ilhan Omar made. That was the implication. If you're shouting down anti-Semitism, somehow you led to the death of 49 people?
And Pete, but I thought the goal here, I mean, maybe I'm confused, maybe you're confused here. I thought the goal was to call out hate in all forms. I mean, the Democrats say that all the time, even in their watered down resolution against Ilhan Omar, which they took her name out of after anti-Semitic comments. What did they keep saying? We need to call out hate in all forms. Well, why not anti-Semitic hate? Why is that the only acceptable form of hate? The answer is it isn't to me or anyone else on the set, but why is it to the people who confronted Chelsea Clinton?
Just unbelievable. Meanwhile, we are learning a lot more about Beto O'Rourke, maybe about his poetry in his early life. That might be interesting. You can read about that online. But folks at CNN and elsewhere seem most shocked that they've learned he's a white male. Watch.
This is seen as a moment by some where Democrats want to nominate either a woman or a minority. Beto O'Rourke is neither of those things. O'Rourke is a white male, and he's conscious of his white maleness.
And it's very evident to everyone, and that is that he's a white man.
They may not be open to another white male.
Another white male.
A lot of the energy in the party right now is not for a white man.
There's still an issue in this country where people just get very, very excited about white men.
Being a white man who says, I was born to do this, is not going to go over well with the current Democratic Party electorate.
Oh, boy. The number of times we counted it that CNN criticized or sort of raised the idea that Beto being a white male might be a problem was 52 times in this short period of time. Dan, did they take this head fake about Beto and somehow think, oh, my gosh, what happened?
They thought he was Latino,
I don't know
actually.
How did we get here? It's just incredible. Like from the days of Martin Luther King talking about the content of one's character to now on a well, not too popular channel, I must say. They are the basement dwellers of news media, but people still watch them, 2 or 3. That you're on a national television network and you're talking about exclusively a guy's qualities based only on his skin color. You know, one thing about Beto, though, the media gives him a pass on everything. I can't say this enough. Remember the original Ghostbusters? I know you guys seen it. Rachel, I know you've seen it. Remember Gozer at the end? Gozer becomes whatever you think he is, right? So he becomes the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. That's Beto. And since the media doesn't hold him to account on almost anything on his policies, Beto's whatever you think he is. You think Beto's a moderate? He's a moderate. You think Beto's a liberal? He's a liberal. He is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man of politics, and the media will never hold him to account. It's amazing.
Do you think he takes it even more so because he's a young white man? So he should know better. He should be woke enough to know that it's not his time. Whereas Bernie Sanders, well, he's an older guy, you know, so we got to give him that pass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this idea of wokeness, and here's the irony of it, Pete. A lot of the people in that montage we just played, some of them were white themselves. So it's like, wait, you can't comment on this. You may not be woke enough either. What about your media privilege? Like, are white people? It's this. You see how the endless road to stupid. This leads to an intellectual vacuum nobody can possibly fill.
Danny Bag of Donuts, stay woke for us, all right?
Yeah, buddy, you know it.
Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, see you guys. Take care.
All right. We're going to turn to some headlines right now. We begin with a Fox News alert. New details are released on the Montana State Trooper shot during a manhunt. Trooper Wade Palmer is fighting for his life, and he is in critical condition. Police say Jonathan Birch shot Trooper Palmer after opening fire on a truck in a fit of road rage. One person died and 2 others are injured. Birch is expected in court on Monday. The GoFundMe page for Trooper Palmer, a father of 2, has raised over $62,000 to donate. We ask you to go to foxnews.com. A missing 2-year-old Wisconsin girl is found dead in Minnesota overnight. The nationwide search coming to a tragic end. Noelani Robinson's father, now behind bars, Darius Higgins, is accused of abducting the child and murdering her mother. Bernie Sanders hits the campaign trail with a bandaged head after getting stitches in South Carolina. The 2020 presidential candidate's campaign says he cut himself on a shower door. The 77-year-old was given a clean bill of health, and he will not miss any of his scheduled events. The news comes as Sanders staffers became the first ever major presidential campaign to unionize. Wow. And take a look at this. People are planking like RBG. Crowds working out in front of the Supreme Court steps to celebrate Ruth Bader Ginsburg's 86th birthday. Ginsburg is a known fitness fanatic who attributes her health to regular exercise. She's the oldest Supreme Court justice and plans to serve for another 5 years. And those are your headlines.
Happy birthday.
Well, we should plank like RBG.
Yeah.
Maybe the 9 o'clock hour.
Maybe later on. Good stuff.
All right. Meanwhile, the president issuing the first ever veto of his presidency, saying it's his duty to defend the safety of all Americans. The former border chief under President Obama, he's supportive of this president, and he reacts live next.
And TV's Todd Pyra live in Oyster Bay, New York, where he's getting ready to take the polar plunge. Todd, you gonna make it look good?
Hey, we're going to have a great time today, guys. We're freezing for a reason, about to jump into that body of water, all to raise money for the Special Olympics. And I'm joined by these guys. They're the Freezing Monkeys. Oh, it's good to be on more Fox and Friends after this. Nice sign, gentlemen.
Congress's vote to deny the crisis on the southern border is a vote against reality. It's against reality. It is a tremendous national emergency. Congress has the freedom to pass this resolution, and I have the duty to veto it.
President Trump issuing the first veto of his administration after the Senate votes to block his declaration of a national emergency at our southern border. So what does this mean for the security of our nation? Here to weigh in, former Border Patrol Chief under former President Obama, Mark Morgan. Mark, thanks for being here this morning. That ceremony, that moment yesterday, is it getting the attention it deserves?
I don't think so. Not from the people that really counts, that they're elected to safeguard the security of our country. And I hope that every senator that voted against the president, they really were voting against America. I hope they were watching the president from the Oval Office as he laid out the case once again. And Pete's absolutely right. First, this is a national emergency. And second of all, for those who voted against him, they're not facing reality. I mean, the president is flanked by countless sheriffs throughout this entire country echoing that this is an emergency. He's flanked by angel families who reminds this entire country how very real it is, how they talked about loved ones were killed at the hands of illegal aliens. And he also laid out the case that we're anticipating this year, Pete, almost between 800,000 and 1 million people will try to illegally enter this country. And they want to say that this isn't a crisis. It's unbelievable.
Mark, when I see the passion of the guys like yourself, but others at that ceremony, and just the rank and file guys that I talk to, when you hear them say, finally, someone is doing, everyone's been lying to us, they've been using campaign slogans, this guy's actually doing it. Will the building of these sections of the wall through emergency be the kind of solution we've long needed?
Well, so, Pete, you're absolutely right. And that's why the reason why you see the passion from all those people you talked about, including myself, because we know, we've worked it, we've lived it. We know the lies that are being told. We know the misinformation that Americans are being told, and Americans are dying because of that. And that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. You know, we just had Bambi Larson, another illegal alien, killed an American citizen, stabbed her brutally to death this week. And what that wall will do as part of that multi-layer strategy and everything else that the president is trying to do, border security, it's going to stop that. These deaths, the drug overdoses, these things are preventable. The American people need to understand that. Stop listening to the pundits and the politicians. Start listening to the experts that the president is listening to and do the right thing to protect this country.
Briefly, Mark, what happens in those places where this new wall has been needed and is now built?
So that's the key question. What it does is it's not the end all to be all, but again, as part of the infrastructure, technology, and personnel, what it's designed to do, which it does do, is it takes away that avenue. It takes away the avenue from people trying to illegally enter the country and from the cartels bringing in bad people and bad things, and it really focuses them to the points of entry, right? And that's where we stand in advantage, and we stand a better chance.
And that's where your manpower and your screening get even better. Mark Morgan, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
You bet.
All right, well, her parents were told by 3 different doctors to abort her for medical reasons. But her parents didn't listen. Her powerful story coming up next.
My parents said, even if our child is blind and is deaf and does have mental struggles, our child has value.
Good morning again. Some quick headlines. A proposed student minimum wage bill sparking a little bit of controversy there in Arizona. The Youth Employment Act would allow employers to pay students less than the state minimum wage of $11. Supporters insist it would help businesses hire more entry-level workers. Students and the ACLU getting involved, calling it age discrimination, vowing to sue if it passes. And Shake Shack is testing out 4-day work weeks. Do they mean Shake Shack? I think that's what they meant. The pilot program is here to see the schedule change will make employees more productive and creative, as research shows. It's only at its Las Vegas locations, and now no word if it applies to all workers. You got to fix some of that spelling in the prompter. It is Shake Shack. Rachel.
Definitely Shake Shack. Good place to eat. All right. A woman whose parents were told by 3 different doctors to abort her for medical reasons gives powerful testimony on the value of life as Georgia considers banning most abortions after a baby's heartbeat is detected.
My parents said, even if our child is blind and is deaf and does have mental struggles, our child has value. Our child's value is not lost simply because they're sick.
That woman, Rachel Guy, strongly supports the heartbeat bill, and she joins us live this morning to share her story. So, Rachel, let's talk a little bit about your story. So you had a condition in utero that was preventing you from growing, and the doctors told your parents that they should abort you.
Yes. And so what had occurred is at 24 weeks, my mom had lost all of her amniotic fluid. And the physicians had said this child must have a chromosomal abnormality not compatible with life. And my parents said even if our child has value and we will fight for our child. And it is so heartbreaking because these doctors were absolutely unwilling to fight for my life. My parents said, will you at least fight? And the doctor said, the only test we will offer is an autopsy. And another physician said, the most chilling words, and he said it calmly, very calmly, as if it was normal to tell parents to take the life of their children, to preemptively kill their children.
Go ahead.
He said that in all of his years of practice, every single parent he had to abort had, and so all he could tell my parents to do was to go home, wait for the baby to die, and that my mother would deliver a stillborn child.
Wow.
And
yeah, it's an amazing story and so shocking because, as you said, probably so many mothers are being told that their baby won't survive. I looked at those pictures of you. It's so tiny, so fragile, 1 pound. So this isn't just a story about giving a baby a chance, but also about the viability of children outside of the womb at just 1 pound. Am I correct about the weight?
1 pound, 2 ounces.
Oh, those 2 ounces. Wow.
Every ounce counts when you're that
every
small.
ounce counts when you're that little, right? But I think it was Dr. Seuss who said, you're a person no matter how small you are. And that's really what you're talking about here, that truly the baby, it should be treated as a separate patient, whether it's disabled or sick in utero, and that their location, as you said in your testimony, shouldn't be a reason to discriminate against them, correct?
Yes, yes.
And how did you feel giving this testimony? It must have been very powerful for you to get up in front of all these people in such a public forum and tell your story.
Yes, it absolutely was. It was. There were very mixed emotions. Just my heart hurt, and truly hurt for these precious pro-abortion people, because in their frustration, in their anger, in their yelling. They're yelling because they hurt. They're yelling because most often they've had abortions themselves, and they're trying to figure out a way to take that hurt out. And they're doing it in a way that hurts them, but it's heartbreaking. And the other aspect I would say is it was truly a beautiful testament to be able to proclaim that we all have value, no matter if we're healthy or if we're sick, and that our value comes from the Lord, and that no matter how conceived, no matter if we're healthy or sick, we have value from the Lord.
Well, it's a wonderful testimony, Rachel. You are walking evidence that a baby truly does, in utero, does have humanity. So thank you so much for sharing that with me. Have a great day, Rachel. All right. Could Colin Kaepernick soon be back on the football field? The new job opening that may soon be his. And Todd Pyro is live in Oyster Bay, New York, where he's getting ready to take the polar plunge. Todd?
Hey, good morning to you. Obviously here to benefit Special Olympics, but I got to admit, it's getting pretty cold here. That's it, Angelo, my buddy, says he's got warm skin. What do you mean by that? Exactly. He has no idea what he means by that. But as you see, all these folks have these mustaches here. There must be something in the water in Massapequa that explains Kill Me. More Fox and Friends after this.
Well, you see Bob Mueller, the special counsel there, the reporters, public waiting, wondering when will his report come out. We keep hearing rumors it's going to be this week, it's going to be next week. We shall see when it finally comes out. In the meantime, there continue to be revelations about how this entire Russia investigation started, including new information about an aide to the late Senator John McCain passing on that dossier at the beginning of the probe, sharing it around, raising some new questions. And so we want to bring in Ken Starr, of course, former independent counsel, investigated Bill Clinton on Whitewater and other matters. Also the author right there, you see, of the book Contempt. Mr. Starr, Judge Starr, good to see you this morning.
Hey, good to see you. Thank you. Good to be with you.
What do you make of what I said about this aide to the late Senator John McCain sharing the dossier around, but also the revelations we saw this week, various testimonies shared with former FBI officials like Lisa Page and Peter Strzok that suggest that this entire investigation started under some murky circumstances, to say the least?
Yeah, the more we find out, the uglier it becomes. And so, yes, the background is questionable. And I think it's important for us to know, look, we need to know the truth. How did all this come to be? So I'm thankful that this news is coming out so we can all evaluate it. The Steele dossier, I think, has been very substantially discredited, and the more we find out, the worse it becomes. I really am disappointed that now Senator McCain, who is a great man, I knew him, I admire him, I think he is an American hero, but I'm very sorry that he got implicated in this in terms of spreading this really nasty stuff around.
But he said that he didn't have anything to do with passing on the dossier to the FBI. And yet now we know he did.
Deeply disappointing. Well, we'll see. That's what the evidence shows. You know, I'm one who keeps saying, don't rush to judgment, but that's what the evidence tends to show. And I'm just saying, I'm very, very saddened by this. Look, John McCain was an American hero who did so much for the country, but this is unfortunately a very dark stain.
Yeah, not just the FBI, but to BuzzFeed and members of the media getting it out there. Now, the president, you talk about the murky waters of the Mueller investigation. Well, the president slammed it in a series of tweets yesterday, saying this. He said, so if there was knowingly and acknowledged to be zero crime when the special counsel was appointed, and if the appointment was made based on the fake dossier paid for by crooked Hillary, and now disgraced Andrew McCabe, and all stated no crime, then the special counsel. It goes on to say...
Basically never should have been named.
Never should have been named, exactly. So your reaction to the president laying out some pretty clear terms here.
Right. Well, I understand the president's frustration when we look back at the origins of this, how questionable it is, very bad judgment being used. Bad judgment at best by some of the senior people in the FBI. It really was a very sad chapter for the FBI. A lot of those people are gone. Perhaps more should be gone because the FBI is a great organization. But we are where we are. And the investigation was launched, and the president has it in his power to fire anyone in the chain of command. Remember what happened to the Saturday Night Massacre and Richard Nixon. So I don't blame the president for being so frustrated by this, but let's just bring this process to an end. We have a new attorney general of absolute total integrity. So let's let the process finish up, which is what appears to be happening.
Judge, you were the president and the chancellor of Baylor College, or Baylor University, I should say. And so this cheating scandal has come up. You know, we were just recently in the last segment talking about Bill Maher, somebody who says a lot of things that people don't expect a liberal like him to say, but is really speaking truth to power a lot of times. He says there's a real liberal face on the college admission scandal because it includes, now we're learning, lying about identity, much as we saw with Senator Warren herself, power, money, corruption. What is your take on all this?
Well, I'm outraged. I was very closely involved in the admissions process at Baylor University. I know that process at Baylor had integrity. You know, there are only over 4,000 colleges and universities in the United States, and the ideal situation is when the college admissions counselor is seeing that student, seeing the student's loving family and so forth, an actual tour of the campus. And I'm not one to say, let's just go by the numbers. You know, let's just look at the ACT, SATs, look at your GPA and so forth. You want to look at the trajectory of what is the character of the person and so forth. But this was a huge, from what we're finding out, a huge corruption of a very important system. American higher education has a lot to be proud of, but this is an incredibly sorry chapter.
Does American higher education have a lot to be proud of? I mean, we're seeing kids coming out indoctrinated, one-sided view, lack of free speech. I mean, are these institutions sick?
Oh, there is sickness, absolutely. But why do people from around the world come to the United States at these very high prices? And it's because there is a very important product. Yes, I do think that the ideological bent is an issue for alumni, for boards of trustees, and so forth. Couldn't agree with that more. Let's have greater honesty and integrity and intellectual integrity. And let's also have free speech on college campuses. I've long been a proponent of saying you do not shut speakers down and so forth. Administrators, college presidents need to show guts.
Imagine that. Free speech on college campuses. Judge Starr.
Thank you, Judge.
Thanks, sir.
Hopefully we'll get some real reform from this scandal. All right.
Shall see.
We're turning now. Do you doubt that, huh? All right, we're going to turn to some headlines. A slain mob boss shakes hands with his killer moments before being gunned down outside his home. New York City police say the gunman spoke with Frankie Cali after crashing into his SUV. The Gambino crime family boss then turned his back as the suspect opened fire. The authorities are eyeing late Gambino boss John Gotti's brother Gene, who's 6 months out of prison. Police say the murder was not sanctioned by New York's 5 mafia families. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio implies that Jeff Bezos' affair may have impacted Amazon's decision to pull the plug on their deal.
Unusual things were happening within the Amazon family at that moment in time.
You believe Jeff Bezos' affair somehow?
I didn't say that. I said
what
it was
are
an
you
unusual environment, meaning there were a lot of cross pressures, there was a lot of things going on.
Amazon backed out of plans for a second headquarters amid local opposition and union backlash. Weeks before the decision, Bezos announced he was getting a divorce amid reports that he was dating a former news anchor.
Maybe trying to shift the focus away from AOC.
Yeah, that sounds like it to me. Former presidential candidate Jeb Bush calls for a Republican to challenge President Trump in 2020.
I think someone should run, just because Republicans ought to be given a choice to beat a sitting president. But to have a conversation about what it is to be a conservative, I think it's important. And our country needs to have competing ideologies that people, that are dynamic, that focus on the world we're in and the world we're moving towards, rather than revert back to a nostalgic time.
Still low energy, though. Still low energy. The president and the former Florida governor traded jabs throughout the 2016 campaign after President Trump dismissed Bush as low energy. He did seem a little low energy in that.
Jeb should run. Yeah. Run again.
Really? You're going to back him?
Yes. If he says somebody should run, he's representing conservatism. He's the man.
More on that later.
Go
Last
for
week
it.
he was endorsing Elizabeth
New campaign
Warren.
manager.
Run.
President Trump,
Please, Jeb.
issuing the first ever veto of his presidency, saying it is his duty to defend the safety of all Americans. Well, the former border chief under President Obama reacts next hour.
And as the 2020 field of Democrats and possibly Jeb Bush continues to grow, the candidates are taking their message on the road. But what do the voters think? We've got brand new dials coming up next.
We said that guaranteeing health care to all is a right, not a privilege. Oh, and they said too radical, too radical.
And we're back with some extreme weather. Historic flooding forcing states of emergencies all across the Midwest. Urgent rescues underway from Nebraska to Rachel's home of Wisconsin.
The swollen Missouri River is compromising a dam and threatening a nuclear plant shutdown.
More than 10 million people remain under flood warnings. Rick Reichmuth joins us with the latest. Rick.
Yeah, the nuclear plant, if the water rises 2 feet more, they'll have to take it offline. It's at 42.5 feet. If it gets to 45 feet, that's when they'll do that. Take a look at the map, show you what's going on. We've had such incredible snow. In fact, almost all of the northern plains had record snowfall this year. Now you get rapid snow melt from the big rain that went through. I will tell you the rest of the country behind this huge and powerful storm we had this week, it's really cleared everything out. You see these scattered showers down across parts of the Central Gulf and Florida. That will be kind of the only spot where we have any action going over the next couple of days. It's the Mississippi River watershed overall that's going to be a problem as we move forward, and we've got a lot of gauges that are already in major flood stage. This story will be with us, I think, for the next number of weeks, but Nebraska right now under the gun. Guys?
All right. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Appreciate it. All right, well, 2020 presidential hopefuls out in full swing, bringing their message straight to the people. But most importantly, what do the voters think?
Here with the Dials partner at Maslansky and Partners, Lee Carter. Good morning.
Great to be here.
Good stuff. So we're already taking the dials of these candidates. No one's voted yet, but people are paying a lot of attention. Here's Joe Biden. Take a listen.
Today, we seem to be at each other's throats. Mean pettiness has overtaken our politics. We're defined by those enduring principles that are in the Constitution, even though we don't necessarily all know them. That's what defines us. That in America, everybody gets a shot. That's what the next president of the United States needs to understand, and that's what I don't think this current president understands at all.
So I thought this was really fascinating. You could see there, Democrats gave him an A, independents a B, even Republicans gave him a C. He's got a draw. Now, he is the only candidate that's pulling independents at all. You're going to see that as we go forward. But the thing where he lost folks, especially independents, there was when he slammed the president. So it's going to be really, really key to see how he runs his campaign once he announces what message he has.
He hasn't got
So he's a potential candidate. And if he runs as an anti-Trump, it's not going to work. When he runs as who he is, it's obvious to people that he's a different candidate than the president, and that would be smarter for him to run as. So it's going to be interesting to watch.
It's a lesson for the other candidates as well. So let's take a look at Bernie Sanders on this clip right here.
Very few in the media took our campaign seriously. We came here and we said we need to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. The establishment said, Bernie, that's a radical idea. We said that guaranteeing health care to all is a right, not a privilege. Oh, and they said too radical.
It's a big blue line right there.
Wow. It's a big blue line. He got an A+ from Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, on the other hand, gave him a complete F. But let's remember, this is a race about getting Democrats on board. He's got them. His policies, Medicare for all, living wage, radical policies. You can see that Democrats really responded favorably there. He's going to be a tough candidate to beat.
In the primary.
Yeah,
in the primary.
But that's a problem in general.
All right, Elizabeth Warren had a tough start. Let's see how she's doing now. Watch.
Bernie has to speak to what democratic socialism is.
But you are not one.
And I am not. All I can tell you is what I believe, and that is there's an enormous amount to be gained from markets, that markets create opportunities.
Doesn't sound like anybody likes it.
No, that was like a big fat snore by everybody. Democrats gave her a C+, Independents, Republicans gave her a C, C-. There was just nothing going on there. And no matter what she says, she's pretty flatline. People are not excited about her at all.
Defending capitalism does not make you popular in the modern Democratic
But it's a managed capitalism. She's making a
All right.
Yeah. Sure. Thank you, Lee. Appreciate it.
great stuff.
to be here.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, you know her as our senior meteorologist. Now, JD Janestein is on the New York Times bestseller list. She's sharing some stories from her new memoir, Mostly Sunny. Coming up next. Come on in, Janestein. And he's right. The boss is here.
Yes.
She brings the sun.
Don't tell Rick Brake knew that.
Janestein here live in the flesh on the weekend. Thank you so much for being here.
Are you kidding?
And congrats on your awesome New York Times bestselling book.
Mostly Sunny, making the New York Times bestsellers list.
Listen, I'm a kid from Canada, from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and to see your name on the New York Times bestseller list, I don't think I've really woken up from it, to be honest with you. It's quite amazing. So the book has been so well received, and the tweets and the messages from people. This is the kind of book that I wanted when I was going through some pretty dark times 15 years ago when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. There wasn't a lot of optimistic books out there with people who've been diagnosed with MS. So I kind of wrote this as a love letter to myself and people who are going through challenging times.
You know, one of the things I love about is your honesty in the book. It's really incredible, and you talk a lot about the unique challenges of being a woman in this industry. Based on your experiences and what you're saying in the book, what is your advice to young women looking to get into this industry, specifically with that sort of superficial side of
Be yourself, be yourself, be yourself.
Yes.
You know, that's, I think, our greatest selling point. And people can tell on television if you're real or not.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, in the old days of the anchor man, anchor woman, where you read the teleprompter, you know, people want to feel a connection.
Totally.
And, you know, when I go outside and I meet the folks when I'm doing the weather, that's all me. That's what I've been wanting to do since I was 6 years old.
So you got a quick story about your husband.
So the story about my husband is a wonderful love story, and I always say I must have done something good in my youth or childhood to deserve him. It was a blind date, and I will read you an excerpt from Mostly Sunny.
Right.
Leanne and I met for dinner. We ordered drinks, and right away, bypassing many details of her honeymoon in Hawaii, she began to tell me about the New York City firemen she and Tony, her husband, had met on their hike. She also may have mentioned how she is a great matchmaker. I was single, he was single, and more importantly, I didn't know anyone in New York. He might be a good person to get to know, even if it wasn't a romantic connection. But wouldn't it be great if you did fall in love? What a story to tell your kids someday, Leanne might have said with a twinkle in her eye.
Wow.
So they met on their honeymoon in Hawaii. And Sean was doing a lifelong dream of surfing in Hawaii. This was after 9/11. He lost a lot of men that day. So he was out in Hawaii, and he met my friends Leanne and Tony. I had just moved to New York. I was in a job I really hated. And I was like, I don't need this right now. I don't like New York. I don't want to be here, but maybe she said you should.
You took the Mostly Sunny outlook.
I took the Mostly Sunny.
And
the rest is history.
Ready for St. Pat's Day?
I am in green.
Perfect.
Good luck with the book.
Thank you. Thank you for having
Mostly
me.
Sunny. Go get your
Check
copy.
it out. More Fox and Friends coming up in just a minute.